So every time I start one of these streams, I never know whether I'm live. I never know whether you can hear me or see me or anything. I see you. I see you're texting. You're texting? You're not texting. You're writing. You're writing. And obviously you can see me because you like the hat. I like the hat too. It's a good right. I like it fine, this wee cap of mine, you know. Anyway, hello. Good. I'm glad you can hear and see me. Is my volume okay? I have a limiter on. I'm trying to turn things up a bit. This mic is, this is the classic podcaster mic, so I kind of I got to make love to the mic, to make it come through. Anyway, hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me on this impromptu little chat. Do you guys know Knights of Last Call, the YouTube channel? Derek? He, I came across him when I was looking for Pathfinder 2 actual plays. I know, weird. I was looking for Pathfinder 2 actual plays. And I saw his YouTube channel. I met at Gen Con this year. He is exactly like me. He knows all the games. He's played all the games. Everything. We sat there at Kelsey Dion's birthday in this Italian restaurant for hours, and we just talked about, all the minutia details of every system ever made. It was glorious. It was fantastic. Anyway, so I really dug this guy. I thought Derek was great. But what he does, he was telling me, is that he does, I think, weekly live streams, and he basically just caters to his patrons. That's all he does. He just talks to his patrons, and this has been a going concern for him for a long time, and he's totally chill about it. He's like, you know what? I just talked to my people, and he responds like this, and I thought, yeah, that would be a great thing for me. I always wanted to do that, actually. I wanted to just do a weekly stream just for the patrons or just for the YouTube channel members. It's just that I always run out of time because, I've got a voice career and now I've got this game, apparently, that I'm trying to finish. So it's hard for me to find the time, but I would love to be able to do it. I just don't know when I would do it. Like Sunday night, maybe. So those of you in Europe are going, this is no good for me because Sunday night I'm in the sleep. Or whatever your accent is. It would be fine for North America and South America, presumably. I know I have a lot of fans in Brazil. So, hello, Brazil, if you're listening. Anyway, it's just a thought, and every time I see his show, I think, by gum, that's something I should do. I should do that, but I've never done it. Okay, riddle me this. I've cranked the volume on the mic. Am I breaking up? Do I sound like I'm distorting? Just tell me if I am, and I'll turn it down a bit. Because this whole situation here, I'm not a huge fan of this Shure SM7B. Not a big fan for all kinds of reasons. But everybody says I'm clear. Okay, that's good. Because I did an interview with some guys, oh boy, almost a year ago. And I sounded good on my end, but then I saw the interview on YouTube, and I was like, coming through clipping. Bad clipping. So, you guys are all telling me that crystal clear. Oh, little possum, whoever you are, get to the point, please. This is the point. This is the point. Me talking right now about whatever the fuck I want. That's the point right here. Hey? Yeah, that is the point, actually. So, hello. Welcome. Welcome, newcomers, if there are any newcomers. Welcome, old fogies as well. How many of you are here and really don't know me, but you know the Broken Empires? Let me know. Let me know in the chat. I hate those YouTube terms. I hate that way of talking, that whole, hey, if you really like and subscribe, and I hate all that shit. But, I have to do it. I have to do it because that's what we do. First-time listener over here, Jason Newquist. Welcome, Jason. I hope you enjoyed the show. Algorithm speak, yes, Pitbull, exactly. It's complete algorithm speak. I despise it. Anyway, so, what am I going to talk about today? Obviously, I'm going to talk about the Broken Empires, where we are, but I'm not just going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about all kinds of stuff. I'm going to talk to you directly, going to answer your questions or, that kind of stuff. Often I won't understand what you're trying to say because this medium is not real good for communication. I've noticed the guys over at Black Lodge Games, they have, when they do their streams on Thursday nights, I think it's Thursday nights, they have this thing where they're talking and then they're so committed to their listeners that every time somebody writes something, it comes up in Joe Biden's voice, but it interrupts them and then they respond to it. And I if you guys, if you're listening, I'm like, you got to finish your thought. I'm hanging on your words, but then Joe Biden comes in with whatever someone just said, and it's like, oh, I want to hear what you said. Anyway, so I'm just babbling now. Yeah, this is an impromptu stream because I haven't talked to you guys in a while, and I haven't released an update for the Broken Empires, although that is coming. That'll be coming early next week because we got to get it in for September. What can I tell you just off the... Oh, wait a minute. Look at this. Zero says, can we have Season 5 with Daggerheart? Derek's huge fan of Daggerheart over at Knights of the Last Call. He thinks it's great. I haven't read it. I quickly glanced at it and said, I don't think this is for me, but such as it is. No, I will not be using Daggerheart with Season 5. Season 5, I still have to finish Season 4. And by the way, Adalada had asked me at the beginning of this, when are we doing the end of Season 4? I promise you, I will do the end of Season 4. It's been on a hiatus for a year now. For an entire year, it's been gone, waiting. But I will finish. What can I tell you? I can tell you that I am running a proper Broken Empires game right now. I don't even want to call it a test, but it's with my developers. It's with my team. But they are just taking the role of players. We're not doing a playtest thing. We're not doing playtesting is very frustrating. It's very difficult, and it's not really fun because when you're playtesting, you're going through a scenario, and you have to stop and fix things. Now, you don't have to do that. In fact, you probably shouldn't. There's better ways to do it. But that's what we do, and that's what I do, because I'm obsessed with getting things right in the moment. If something goes wrong, I'm like, I want to fix this right now before we go on. So it's very frustrating, that process. So I needed to just play the game. I needed to remind myself why I made this damn thing in the first place. So that's what we're doing right now. So my developers are playing a little mini campaign right now, set in the very north of the Westlands on the border of Thessia. It's something I just came up with on the fly, and so far, it's great. By so far, I mean the one session we've played. But it's great. It was like setting up a TV pilot, setting up all the conflicts and stuff like this. But it was great because it made me remember why I like this game. Sometimes you get so in the weeds. Sometimes you get so in the weeds of your own creation, you forget why you're doing this in the first place, because you get so obsessed with rules and I got to make sure everything's balanced and everything works and blah, blah, blah. But this has been great for my psyche. And it's been so great that it's going to, I think it's going to propel me back to the shooting studio to finish Season 4 is really what that's all about. Yeah, so sitting down to play has been awesome. It's reminded me of why I wanted to do this in the first place, as I said, which was really cool. There was another thing I was going to say about that, and it's gone from my mind now. Oh, well. So, how many people are here? Oh, there's some folks. Hello, folks. Let's see here what we've got. Vortak. Hey, Vortak, how you doing? I actually would love Trevor to do a Delta Green season session. Well, I don't know if I could do a season solo with Delta Green, but I'd love to do a session. I run Delta Green very occasionally for my Vancouver group, and it's great, but it's extremely intense because we take it extremely seriously. So it's an exhausting game for them, mostly, because they're, terrified of dying the whole time. Not just dying, going insane and all the other wonderful things that can happen in a Delta Green session. Okay, there was a whole bunch of stuff that I was about to say, and it's completely gone from my head, which is fine, because, I'll probably get back to it. I'm trying to be very chill about this stream, man. Just chill. James Wood, have you considered running a group through the Broken Empires on camera? Yes. If we do that, it'll be a little later. I have a bunch of videos that I'm going to do once we get closer to release that are tutorial videos on the game. And once those are done, basically I'll take them in chapters. I'll be like, here's a tutorial on combat, here's a tutorial on magic, here's a tutorial on travel, on social encounters, blah, 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 blah. And once I do all of that, if there's interest, I might put together a group game, a limited group game, much as I did for Blade Runner. The reason why I don't want to commit to that is because that was a just unbelievable amount of work to do Blade Runner. Crazy. Like, I was in the edit suite for a month, basically, so I'm not eager to do that again. But if people really want it, of course, I'll consider it. Giuliano, Trevor's too much of a perfectionist, so seasons take forever to make. This is good because it's high quality, but it's bad because it's taken forever. Well, you're right. I am a perfectionist. And it's funny because I actually said to my sort of art director, coordinator, art manager guy, Nav, the other week, I said, are we letting the perfect be the enemy of the good? Because him and I are very similar in that we are perfectionists and we want to make sure everything is just right. But at some point, you have to go, you know what? We just have to release this in the wild. We have to just, like I've said many times, any creative endeavor, it's never finished. It's just the creator decided to stop at some point. Every time I see a role-playing game on my shelf, that is not a finished book. That is just a book in the state at which the author said, all right, that's enough. So I was concerned that we were letting the perfect be the enemy of the good, but that's actually not the case. We are just trying to create a product that is worthy of the quality of my channel when it comes to the shows. And that means it takes time. I really wanted this thing to be out by October, but it is September the 27th, and I can promise you it will not be out by this October. That was an estimate. As I said in the last update, we're 6 months behind because we're 5 guys doing the work of 30. The good news is the art is coming in fast and furious now, and not only is it just awesome, but also it means that we can go faster. Because before we were relying on a little handful of artists, and that means it's going to take time. But with more artists coming in, now we can punch those pieces in when we need them to be, right? Something about art and presentation, too. I had said in the video I did at Gen Con that I might release an ASCII version, like a text-only version of the rules before Christmas if we're not done. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that, and I really, really thought about this a lot. The fact is, a role-playing game is not just the rules. It is the entire package. When I fell in love with Warhammer Fantasy First Edition back in 1988, 7, whatever that was, it wasn't because I saw a blank text or a simple text version of the rules and went, oh, these rules are great, I want to play this. No, it was the presentation. It was the fact that everything was in one book. It was the art, just dripping with Gothic Renaissance horror fantasy, which I'd never seen before. It was the presentation of how the game was done in terms of like their careers, right? But it was the way the careers were laid out, and it was the art that went along with that. I'm telling you, if I had just seen Woofrup First Edition just as the rules, I would never have bought it. Because I would have been, yeah, sure, I guess. Skill-based, percentiles, sure, seems okay. But instead, it was the full presentation of that game that made me go, oh my God, this looks awesome. And then I bought it and I went, oh, and it's a skill-based game with the percentile dice. Okay, that's fine. So because of that, I can't release just the text version of the game, guys. I can't do it. I have to give you the real thing. We are working so hard on this thing to make it beautiful. I'll tell you another thing. I showed a little piece of the game, because we're about, 120 pages in now or something. And I showed that to very, very big, important creators in this industry. And they saw it and they went, oh my God, that is beautiful. That was a very good sign. And then they said, and I will not tell you who this was, but they said, WotC has endless money. If they wanted to, they could create something as gorgeous as this, but they don't. And yet some guy on YouTube did it, and it's amazing. So that was really encouraging. The game looks great. It feels right. That's what we're really working on. We want the game to feel like the Broken Empires, which only I can decide at this point. Once you guys get it, you can decide what your version of the Broken Empires looks and feels like. But for now, it's all based on me. So that's the situation. Some of you may be disappointed. I'm disappointed. But there is still a chance that you may actually get the PDF by Christmas. There is still a chance. We are working on it. I wouldn't put bets on it. But we are really, that is our, we can only, there's only so many hours in the day, right? Anyway, so we have a question here. We know you are not the biggest fan of rules light RPGs, but of all the rules light you played, which one did you enjoy the most? Well, first of all, it's not that I'm not a fan of rules light. It's just that I get kind of bored of rules light after a while, because there's not a lot of meat with the rules. So it's all about just what the GM can provide or what the players can kind of provide if it's a player-facing game. Like, a lot of those games have the thing where if the player does a thing like kills an enemy, the GM will say, describe how you kill the enemy, which is typically a GM job. But, some games explicitly say, let the players do that, or let the players invest in the setting and let them paint certain scene details and setting details, all that kind of stuff. Like the first Dungeon World did that, right? It was explicit that the players are as contributive to the setting as the GM is. So it's just a different style, but I just kind of get bored after a while, whereas a more meaty game with flesh on the bones, something like a Harnmaster or a Mithras or a Broken Empires, has room to grow slowly, and so you can really parse that out. Now, that's the other thing. Most people who play rules light games, they tend to want short, sweet campaigns. That's not really my thing. I mean, I've got nothing against it, but you got to understand that I come from a tradition where campaigns last years. My One Ring campaign lasted 6 years. My Harnmaster game lasted 3 years, although technically that was sort of 2 campaigns in one. My Vampire game is still technically ongoing. I was in a Rollmaster game that lasted 20 years. You can't do that with a rules light game most of the time. So the ones that I have played that I liked, I like the Powered by the Apocalypse system. I think it's cool. It's very different. A lot of people call it story games. I don't see it as a story game at all, actually. I think it's full role-playing game. But of course it's got different versions and different kind of flavors. But I really like it. I think it's clever and I get excited about it, about playing it or running it. But that only lasts for a while, right? Because I can't rely on the system to help me out. And that's what the Broken Empires is designed to do. It's designed to give a framework and a bunch of tools for a GM to be able to keep running the game for as long as they want to. You can, of course, run a short-term Broken Empires game, naturally. You could increase the XP. You could do whatever you want. But yeah, so Rules Light, my favorite one to run probably was Dungeon World, and I know a lot of Apocalypse players say, oh, that's the worst iteration. I didn't play it for long enough to be able to tell whether it's the worst iteration, but I liked it. It was fun. It was super fun. I ran 3 games. It was great. Anyway, I'll see if I can catch up with you guys here. Royal Magus. I'm looking forward to running a West Marches style campaign with some different friend groups using Broken Empires. That's cool. Yeah, you can absolutely do that. Josh Hatchett. I love your channel, Trevor. I've been watching from episode 1. I've been checking on you ever since. You started me down the path of solo gaming. Keep up the awesome work, man. Well, thank you. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for continuing to watch. I had something really specific I was going to talk about today, and it slipped my mind. I want it to come back. Styles2304, channel member. I don't want to derail your train of thought. That train has left the station. I'm fully derailed, my friend. But in Broken Empire's character creation, how do you generate the starting skill values? Okay. All right. You know what? I'm going to show you something here. I am going to show you where we're at right now with the character sheet. Now, this is the final character sheet, until it's not. It's got temp art for our dude on it. Anyway, here, look, I'll show you. All right, so here's the character sheet right here. This is temp art. This is actually a piece of art we are using in the game to illustrate some armor and stuff, but this is not the dude. So let's talk about skill values and stuff. This is not a character creation tutorial at all, but these are your basic skills in the game, right? Your combat, adventuring, social, and lore skills, and then you got your magic skills, which are binds and strands, and if you're a godbound piety. So it's a D100 game, of course. When you start, all of these are going to be 20. They all start at 20. So it's not like a lot of other D100 games that have like basic skills and advanced skills, where advanced skills you can't even attempt unless you know it. That's not what this is. Everybody can do this or try, right? But the way the skills break down is entirely about your race, your culture, where you come from, your background, like your life events, and your previous career, and then something called rounding out, which is a pool of points you get to, well, literally round out your character. But you've got percentages here, and you fill those in as you go. And there's a whole, I think it's an 11-step process to making a character. It's very, very clearly spelled out in the book. But each one of these gets a score, and you decide where they go. There is some randomization in the game. I've added some options in there for people who want to go totally random. But when it comes to picking your skill values, it really is up to you. It's not difficult to do. It's not advanced calculus or anything like that. It's basic math. But you've got your skill, and you put it in there. Now, X, of course, is expertise. I shouldn't say of course, because maybe you don't know. Expertise is, I quite like this little rule. Expertise is a way to raise the floor of your skill roll. So when you roll a skill in this game, let's say your skill is 60, you want to roll 60 or under on a D100. The tens die you roll is the success level. So it's a roll under but high. It's a blackjack style game, okay? So that means if you have a skill of 60, it's just as likely that you roll a 12 as a 59 and only get one SL, right? So what expertise does is it raises the floor. So if you have expertise 2, that means even if you do roll that 12, you in fact succeed with 2 SLs instead of 1. That's what expertise does. It goes as high as 4. It's expensive to buy, but it's extremely useful, as you can see. It sort of ensures that a really highly skilled person will also have a high minimum. So it's a nice little thing in there. Yeah, bind strands, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, yeah, this is a quick little look at the character sheet so far. We've got the resolve and fatigue bar here. Our attributes, which is max resolve, initiative, the initiative penalty you get from your armor, which gives you your total initiative. Things are quite different from the show. If you guys have been watching Season 4, it's quite different from where we started. Not quite as different from where we ended it, but certainly from where we started it. Toughness is something you add to a wound die to avoid going into shock or to dying. Death threshold is how many total wound points you can take before you're dead. And lethality level is the total amount of points you can take before you risk bleeding out and dying when you are in shock. Okay, that all sounds kind of complicated. It's really not. This is like a lot of those games like Harnmaster or Mithras. It seems really complex at the beginning, but once you actually go through the process once or twice, it internalizes really quickly for most people, right? So that is that. Yeah, and then wounds, total lethal wound points, the base recovery, are you in shock, rounds dying, all that kind of stuff. This is a section for your talents. Armor penalties, you do get penalties to certain things based on the armor you're wearing, and it entirely depends on what kind of armor and where it is, but you don't have to calculate it every time. You just calculate it once and then put it in here. Then you've got the different hit locations. This is the number that shows you where you've been hit, and that's based on the ones die of the attack. So if the guy hits you with a 41, then 1 meets into the body. The detailed location is determined by the ones die of your defense roll. So if he hits you in the body, but you rolled a 33, that's a bad example, 37, let's say 17, let's say, on your defense roll, well, then he hits you in the body, but because it's 17, 7 is there, the stomach. So you get a wound in the stomach. These don't have any real system effects. What matters is, were you wounded in the body or the arm or the leg? Not so much were you wounded in the chest or the stomach. This is just for flavor, just because I love having detailed wounds like this, but there's no real, there's no death spiral in this game, which is interesting. Let me talk about that for a second. So games like Harnmaster, which I love, have a death spiral in place, right? A death spiral basically means, for those of you who don't know, if you take a wound, that wound causes you penalties to your next thing, okay? Which quickly creates a situation where if you have 2 skilled fighters, they're basically picking away at each other and getting worse and worse and worse because they're getting wounded and tired. And that is sort of narratively great, but systematically it's kind of frustrating because now it's a whiff fest. I miss. I hit, it's over, right? So the Rogan Empires does not have a death spiral. However, it does have it has kind of the effects of a death spiral with other penalties, because every wound you take, anytime you get wounded, it doesn't matter if it's a 1-point wound, you have to roll a wound die and add your toughness. And if you get the total amount of wounds that you have in that location or less, that location is impaired. Now, different locations have different effects. But if like your head gets impaired, you're either going to be stunned or you're going to be unconscious based on the result of the wound die itself. So in that sense, wounds have very immediate effects without having these lingering penalties every time you attack. I like it. It keeps people's skills up. I kind of justify it by saying it's people's adrenaline in a fight, right? They keep going. But it works really well. We dig it a lot. So that's how that works. Anyway, okay, so you've got the hit location. This is a little box to mark the location impaired if it is. If any location gets impaired twice, you fall into shock. This is the armor you're wearing. T means trained. Certain armor requires training or else you can't do combat maneuvers. AP is the armor points, which reduces the damage. Sunder is, do you choose to sunder the armor? This is something, it's sort of a little narrative thing that I take from more new school games, or story games if you want. You can choose to sunder your own armor if you take a wound, which basically destroys the armor, but you don't take the wound. This was taken from a rule in the first edition of the One Ring. Something to do with shields, if I recall, which I also do. I also do something called split the shield. You can do the same thing. You can destroy your shield kind of voluntarily as a narrative device to avoid taking the wound, but it destroys the shield. Bulk is each piece of armor has bulk, and you add up all the bulk, and then you divide that number by 3, round it up, and that becomes your initiative penalty up here. So if your normal initiative is 12 and your penalty is -3 from the armor, you're rolling 1d10 plus 9 every round, okay? And then you mark your wounds here. This is the point value of the wound. If I get stabbed in the stomach for 3 points after armor, it's 3 there. Was it non-lethal? That's important because non-lethal wounds won't kill you or risk you bleeding out. They'll just put you into shock. And then you describe what the wound is. Like I was, if you were stabbed in the stomach by a sword, you might say like it's a 3-point and then slash stomach. Again, it's flavor. It doesn't have any super system consequences. This is infection. Is the wound infected? And this is recovery bonus of the wound. Each wound is treated separately when it does get treated. And when a wound is treated, it's given a recovery bonus. And that is added to your base recovery, which is your endurance. And every day you roll at the end of the day, or is it the morning? Actually, it's the morning. The morning? Yeah, I think it's the morning. Every morning you roll to see if the wound has recovered. And a la Hornmaster, if you critically fail on the wound recovery roll, it becomes infected. And then there's a whole awesome set of things that happen if a wound's infected. I shouldn't be so gleeful about that. Anyway, so that's kind of what that is. Shield down here, the size of the shield, the armor points. The shield bash value is something you can do to... it's a combat maneuver if you've got a bigger shield. You can knock somebody prone. And encumbrance. Shields take up weapon encumbrance. The way encumbrance works in the game is there's basically weapons at hand, and then there's inventory. Armor doesn't really count, because if you're wearing armor, it has a bulk already. So that's all you need to worry about. You don't need to also count the weight of the armor. The bulk takes care of that. But everyone has to start 6 weapon encumbrance points, basically, or slots, or whatever you want to call them. Each weapon has a different value in that. The bigger the weapon, the more slots it's going to take up. Weapon encumbrance doesn't mean how heavy the weapon is. It means how literally, how many weapons can you put on your body because you run out of room. This isn't Skyrim. You can't have 60 swords in your pack, right? So that's what weapons at hand means. Can I grab it right now and use it? And that's what a shield is part of that, right? So that adds to that. Then you've got inventory encumbrance where you can stash stuff. It doesn't matter where it is. You can say it's in a backpack. You can say it's in a belt pouch. It doesn't matter. It just means you can't get to it this round. It takes you 2 rounds to get to it. And you can only carry so much, right? These are the weapons here. So that's the name of the weapon. This is your attack chance, your parry chance. The reason why these are separated out here is because certain weapons are defensive, which give you a bonus to parry, and certain weapons are unwieldy, which give you a penalty to parry. So that's why you would change that. So if your melee heavy weapon skill is 60 and you're using a unwieldy weapon, then your attack is 60, but your parry is 40 because unwieldy is a -20. That is the downfall of a two-handed weapon, but they do incredible damage and do all kinds of other things. Reach is whether or not you have reach on your opponent. Reach goes from 0 to 2 or 3. I can't remember. Each point of reach you have over your opponent is a +10 to your attack and defense against them. That's how I deal with reach and distance. For those of you who know Mithras has a very specific way of dealing with reach, like a very detailed way of like a guy with a short sword getting up under the reach of a spear to attack a guy. It's super cool, but for me, as I've said before, it's just that much too simulationist. So this is my compromise. It reaches a number that just adds to your skill against that dude. Also, with a reach weapon, you can set for charge if he's attacking you. Damage is self-explanatory. It's added to the SLs when you attack. These are the 4 combat maneuvers that are connected to that particular weapon. Choose location, circumvent shield, disarm, and trip. Each weapon will have a different number based on its size and its qualities, things like this. Encumbrance is the slots it takes up. Range, if it's a ranged weapon, that'll be in zones, and then any particular notes. So that is that. And then the second page here, you've got your name still there. Goals, and whether it's a shared goal. Goals are very important to this game. That's the only way you advance in the game, is by pursuing goals, and there's a whole chapter on goals. And then the life events from your origin, youth, and recent. And then your resource dies. Again, a little new school touch here. Resource dies. We've got gear, ammo, rations, medical. And then silver pieces. Yes, that is a monetary system. There is also something called status. This is an optional system, but status is for people who want to play characters that either have like big political status or big economic status. Like if you wanted to play a merchant lord and you wanted to set up an entire cartel in the Serpent's Teeth Isles, for example, that's what the status rules would help you do, right? It's very narrative, but there's specific guidelines on how to handle stuff, so that's in there. Relationship NPCs are the NPCs that you get from your life events. They can be friends, patrons, rivals, or enemies. As I said at the beginning of this, I'm running a game for my developers right now, or my playtesters right now. And I didn't know what the game was going to be until they made the characters. Because when they made their characters, those characters emerged and they were sort of birthed from the process. And from that process came their goals, their specific goals. And I tailored the game based on those goals. Not entirely. There was still stuff happening in the world. But I specifically said, oh, wait a minute, this one guy has a rival. I'm going to make him the court wizard of the guy that they're looking to, get employment with, right? Stuff like that. So it really allows the GM to weave those threads into the game, right? And the backstories of the characters and stuff. I don't like to call it backstory, the life events, because a backstory and a life event are not the same thing. Backstory doesn't mean anything. Life event is something that specifically happened to you and gives you a little bonus to a skill, but more importantly, gives you fodder for a goal. Inventory is the stuff in your inventory. Threads are magical threads. That's for wizards. These are things, super valuable things to help you cast spells. General notes. And fraying. Fraying is if you're a spell weaver. You don't want fraying. Fraying is the weave saying, the pattern of the weave saying, you're done. I'm plucking you out. You've messed with things too much. Anyway, that is that. A little taste of the character sheet. I thought you might enjoy that. Corey Mayo, hi from San Antonio. Hey, Corey, how you doing? Giuliano, threads are directly stolen from Mythic. No. Oh, I know what you're thinking of. Yeah, there is a term in the Mythic GM emulator called threads, but that's not the same thing. Threads are not story threads or narrative threads. Threads are literal magic items. They are solidified pieces of the weave that spell weavers utilize to control their spells. So it's a different thing. Also, can you cast a spell to cure infection? Yes, you can, but all magic comes with its own kind of price. Let me come back to the top here to see what I missed here. All right. Where are we? Okay. Oh, I went too far. WotC has no soul. Okay. From your words to God's lips. No, that's not it. God's ears. I don't even know what the term is. All right. Royal Magus. The images and pictures can hook you, but for me, it's the rules that keep me around for years. Yeah, I agree. I love having something to master learn. So when I talked about Warhammer 1st Edition, I loved it because of the presentation, and I stayed with it because the rules were great. Now, the rules were not perfect. Everyone who's ever played Warhammer 1st Edition knows there was a bunch of problems with it, but they were pretty easy to fix for the most part. And in fact, it spawned an entire industry of house rulers on the internet that came up with some really cool stuff, as happens with every game, let's just face it. Okay. Where are we? I'm going to go down here. Speaking of solo games, The Rangers of Shadowdeep looks like a fantastic solo game I've been trying to find around my local game shops. Yeah, I ran a session of it on the channel. and I forget what the name of it was, but it was about hunting a werewolf. It was super cool. I want to do a Rangers of Shadow Deep little campaign. I've got a bunch of campaign books on the channel. I will do that once The Broken Empires is released. What is your favorite alcoholic beverage? Nothing anymore. I've been sober and dry for over 2 years now. I decided to give it up, and life has never been better. Greetings from France. We'll get the game as soon as it gets to Europe. Thanks again for your work. Well, thank you for ordering out there in France. Expertise sounds amazing for Magic. Yes, it certainly helps. It certainly helps. Styles 2304. Thank you. I wasn't sure on the base 20 in every skill. Oh yeah. So you'll see when you get to character creation. 20 is the minimum for a very good reason. Because none of these are advanced skills, you want to have at least a 1 in 5 chance of success at something. We have found originally it was 10, and 10 was like, what's the point? Why even bother? But 20 feels right. It's like, okay, you still have a prayer when it's 20, you know. Okay. Vortex says, I'm very excited to carry this at my store. And I know you've been asking me, Vortex, about retailer pledges, and we are still working it out. But I promise you, we will have an answer for you. Trevor, will you come to Ireland anytime soon? I want to drink a pint with you. Well, it would have to be a pint of soda water. I've been in Ireland since, when the hell was I there? I want to say 2012, I think. It was awesome. We got there March 18th, the day after Paddy's Day, so the entire country was recovering. We were there for 2 weeks in March, and not a drop of rain anywhere we went. The Irish were all like, you're good luck because it should be pouring rain right about now, so thank you for that. Does character creation follow any sort of life path system? Yes, although it's not as rigid as something like Burning Wheel or even Traveler. Basically, the life event, you start with your race, then you pick your stats, so to speak, and then you pick your attributes, and then you go through your life events. Oh, I'm sorry, then you do culture. Is that first? I can't remember. Culture or life events or vice versa. And that will tell you a lot about the character, and then you get to previous career, which is not a class. Previous career is just a bunch of skill points that basically said, this is kind of what you know how to do before you start the game. Once the game starts, you're free to develop in whatever way you want. I did add a monetary system. It's not a resource number anymore. It is silver pieces. It's a standard silver piece system, but there is also the status optional system in which you can use a slightly different version of thing to represent great wealth, right? And more importantly, great influence, which very often in a medieval-esque world is far more important than wealth. That idea was inspired by the Rogue Trader 40K game, the role-playing game, where you don't bother with whether you have a handful of throne gelt in your pocket as a rogue trader. You want to know whether you can buy that, weapons factory on that planet, right? So there's a whole other scale there, and that's kind of what status can do in this game. All right. Thorquin, what about weapon cards someday? Like individual weapon cards? Yeah, I don't know how useful that would be unless you're changing weapons a lot, because on the character sheet there's ample room for it. But yeah, we did actually talk last night about doing various cards for magic effects and stuff. So we'll see. We'll see how. If you guys all go out and buy the game and make it super successful, then we'll be able to produce more stuff. Ricardo, the way you talk about the threads of magic sounds a lot like it was inspired by Loom, the MS-DOS point-and-click game. I don't know that one. Threads were mostly inspired by Ars Magica and something called Whis, raw Whis, which is literally pieces of raw magic that wizards use to fuel their spells. So threads are kind of a similar idea to that. Ticking time, Bob. I love the sheet and the blend of some classic mechanics and some inspired story mechanics. The expertise shift to the floor of a skill roll was fantastic. I'm glad you like it. Agile Monk looking good, Trevor. You too, Monk. You too. Hey, oh. Here's a good one. I mean, they're all good ones, don't get me wrong. Adjacent. You were trying to say adjacent, but you say it in a Spanish accent. Adjacent. Do you regret playtesting the game in Season 4? I think it was really interesting and insightful. I don't regret it, because it was an interesting and insightful experience. But it was an experiment, and it didn't go the way I wanted to, but it was still very useful. It didn't go the way I wanted to because in my stupid and overconfident brain, I thought, well, clearly the first version of this game I playtest on the channel will be the one that takes. I mean, come on. But no. Oh, hubris, thy name is Trevor. So that's why it was a little disappointing to me, because now I can't point new buyers of the game to Season 4 and say, hey, if you want to see how the game works, go watch Season 4. Because if they did that, they'd go, what? Phase-based initiative? That's not in this book I just bought. You know what I mean? So that's why it kind of bugged me. But yes, it was interesting. And, just on a show level, I like it a lot because I was able to bump up the production level quite a bit this season. So yes, I will finish it because I cannot let a story go untold and unfinished. Ryan Holt, chance of getting the starter set PDF before the core rules? No, we've looked at that a lot, and that was something that we were looking at trying to do, but there was a lot of logistical reasons why we couldn't do it. Basically, everything's going to come out at the same time. But we are trying to get it as soon as possible. I know I keep saying that. I know I've been saying that for 8 months, but it is the truth. What is the least expanded part of the system? What have you had to leave out of the game that you wanted in? Oh boy, a lot. Originally, I had to split the game up into 2 entire different books because at one point during the tariff crisis, which we're not out of, by the way, that is still very much a looming threat, and in some ways even more so now because of this potential 500% tariff on countries that buy oil from Russia, which of course includes China, where our producer is. So we're not out of the woods yet. But we can't walk around afraid that the sky is going to fall. We have to move forward. But at one point, I thought, I have to cut the book down to 150 pages from 500. So at one point, there was a version I made that was just 150 pages, and it was it wasn't even worth it. I was looking at it going, there's really nothing in here. I mean, you can barely play the game, right? So I'm very pleased to say that we were able to say, you know what, we're going to do the full, damn the torpedoes, we're going to do the full book, and now it's got everything in it that I want. But the stuff that I couldn't put in there. I mean, there's a bunch of setting stuff that I'd like to put in there still, but the setting chapter is pretty big anyway, as it is. More magic items. I wish I had time for that. Like specific magic items. There's really like a selection right now. I'd love to do an expansion, but these are all things I can do in the future. These are all the things, like I said, if the game does well and if people like it, then I can get to work on that stuff and and start producing that kind of stuff. Got married, stopped drinking, coincidence. Oh, actually, I got married before I stopped drinking, and then my marriage had nothing to do with with the stopping drinking. No one told me to do it. No one said, if you don't stop drinking, there was none of that. It just got to a point where I said, you know what? I think being at the bottom of a bottle for 35 years is probably long enough. There is no mystery that alcohol now holds for me that I have not explored thoroughly. So that was it. I just quit and never looked back. All right. Where are we? Oh, yes, I'm getting behind, yeah. Terry says, I'll want the info on the retail pledge also to give to my FLGS. Yes. Again, we're working on that, Terry. We're trying to figure that out. We've got Night Watch Games here in San Antonio that has reached out to us as well to try and get a retail pledge. So we are trying to figure that out. Von W. Do monsters or NPCs have a morale level? Yes, they do. They have something called ferocity. Ferocity is a value between 1 and 5. And it goes from ferocity 1, where basically if you cut the enemy, he will scream and panic and run, to 5, which there's nothing you can do to stop them. That's like an undead or a Cylon. So most creatures are ferocity 2. They will fight if they need to, but they're not going to get killed for it. It's a very useful mechanic because it doesn't require morale rolls every round. It's just a blanket condition that the GM can look at and go, oh yeah, these guys would run, right? Boom. Now, obviously, players aren't subject to that. They run when they choose to run. They never have to roll morale. That would be silly. But yes, monsters do have morale. That's called ferocity. And that begs the question, do monsters have morals? Or is the lack of morals what makes them monsters? It depends what the monster is, I suppose, and how you define a monster. Yes, Ethbiz. If I recall, they have ferocity levels, which determines likelihood of running away. Okay. Does the game lend to wargamey style, controlling armies, settling fortress, stuff like that? Well, there is a mass combat system that was included because it was an add-on in the Kickstarter, so that is in the book. It is a version of the mass combat system that I've used my whole life. It's small unit tactics. Well, I shouldn't say small unit. You theoretically can have a unit represent 1,000 men if you want. But it is a tactical kind of war game thing. It's not a narrative war game situation at all. Now, that said, in one of the immediate supplements currently in production, there is a more narrative war game style that's included. That allows, because not everybody's into that, right? Not everybody's into, I want to command this unit to come around and flank the archers and attack from the rear. Not everybody's into that. Some people just want to know, what does my character do in the fog of war? So in one of these supplements that is being produced right now, that is an option, or at least a version of it is. I try and provide options when I can because, I say this game is just for me in terms of its design, and that's true, but I also know that not everybody likes what I do or likes what I like, so I'm trying to provide options that don't undermine the core game, but add to it for people that are looking to play it in a slightly different way, right? That's more aligned with maybe what their table likes. The best I can, anyway. Agile Monk, Trevor, you're looking good, sir. Now, where's my Broken Empires? It's on the way, Agile. It's on the way. All right. Jonathan O'Toole, will we ever find out what the mummified badger was for? That is a Season 1 reference. I think it's for whatever you want it to be, Jonathan. Vortek, will you be doing a long video of Seasons 2 and 3 just like you did with Simon in Season 1? Okay, so for those of you who don't know, I did a supercut, a 12-hour supercut on the channel of all of the Season 1 episodes cut together as one giant episode. I did that because some of my compatriots in YouTube at Gen Con told me that it would be an interesting experiment to run to see how your views do. I was very skeptical. I was like, who's going to watch a 12-hour video? They said, do it and find out. So the video did okay, but it wasn't the gangbuster that we kind of thought. My stuff is extraordinarily niche and has a hard time breaking through sometimes, and I've accepted that. I'm never going to be Critical Role. Don't get me started on Critical Role. I'm never going to be them. I'm never going to be Dimension 20. I'm never going to be that. I'm a guy doing a thing. And those of you who keep watching me, I'm extraordinarily grateful to every single one of you because it's because of you that I'm able to keep doing this. And that I want to keep doing this, the fact that you guys keep showing up. As long as there is an audience, I will keep performing. But so I don't think I'm going to do the supercuts of Season 2 and 3. It was just a lot of work, and it really has very little payoff because it didn't break through like we kind of hoped. So it was an experiment, and some experiments fail. One of the experiments that failed on the channel, which really bugs me, is behind the GM screen. This was my attempt to try and show people exactly how I run a game off the cuff using the Mythic GM emulator with players. So I had my two friends, Sebastian and Jared. Jared, who is he's basically a rules consultant and writer on the Broken Empires. He's also like me. He knows every game ever made, and he's a great friend. But I was running him and Sebastian, our other friend, another great friend of mine, through a D&D game, believe it or not. It's the one and only time that 5e has been featured on this channel. The one and only time it ever will be featured on this channel. And the idea was I would run them through an improvised adventure based on the characters they made using the GM emulator. And as they would tell me what their characters did, I would basically mute myself to them, and I would turn to a secondary camera, and I would explain to you, the audience, about what my thinking is as I roll two random results and put them together and apply it to the situation. So I thought that'll be a really cool sneak behind the curtain of the Wizard of Oz kind of thing to see how the brain works in order to create this thing on the fly. And I thought, that's going to be great. Yeah, nobody watched it. So, oh well, not every experiment works. All right. If you want to point people to something, make Season 5. Dude, I'm not even finished Season 4 yet. Mini Monk, seeing your playtest convinced me to back the Kickstarter. Oh, that's awesome. Well, I was more convinced by the later episodes, but still it was a good story. Well, I appreciate that. So if that's the case, Mini Monk, then I guess it was all worth it. And I'm not even joking about this. If I even got one customer, and hopefully happy customer once you get the game, from doing the season, then it was, in fact, all worth it. All right. Okay, where are we? Lots of stuff. Thanks for talking to me, guys. I really enjoy this kind of conversation, such as it is. conversations, such as it is. How are the solo rules coming? Anything innovative there? I don't like to use the word innovative with a game. It makes me sound arrogant or hubristic. But I will say that the solo rules were designed by Tana Pigeon, so they are solid, and they are specifically tailored to the Broken Empires. But they are very similar in feel to Mythic. Why is that? Because that is a system I know and I'm very comfortable with. So I said to Tana, let's do something that I want to run and that I sort of intrinsically know. So I like them fine. I think they're cool. There's a lot of really cool stuff in there about how to handle like NPC spell weavers and stuff. Yeah, it's neat. It is neat. I Roll Alone has to go to bed. Excited to check it out. Can't wait to see what you come up with for the solo rules. Thank you for joining I Roll Alone. Would you be interested in making a trading card game for Broken Empires? I'm so sad with Magic the Gathering. I would love to see your take on that. I'm not a card game guy. I never got into Magic the Gathering. I know nothing about it. I had no interest in it. It's a hugely popular thing. 1 million bazillion people play it. I don't know it. Like I said, it's not really my thing. What is this? Olaga Mojo, I understand your decision about the plain PDF, but as a counter argument, it was only going for the backwards. It was only going to the backers as a stopgap, and not to new buyers who would need the art, etc., to make them buy TBE. Well, that is true, Mojo. However, as we all know, once something is released into the internet, it is in the world, and that could very easily, in fact, it will get out. It will get out as a pirated document, and then people would get possibly the wrong idea, and I don't want that. I'm trying to control this as tightly as I can while I can, because the day that I release anything, that's it. It's gone. And it's in the world, and now I can no longer fix anything. I can no longer do anything like that. So I understand that argument, but it just wasn't enough to justify it in that case. But I thank you for bearing with me. Thorquin, how was your experience with Axe 2 at Gen Con? I didn't actually play Axe 2 at Gen Con, but I am playing it right now. I'm in a Monday night game with some very interesting folks, and it's super fun. Axe Adventure Conquer King, the second edition, 3 giant books. I had the first edition as well. I have to say, it is an OSR game, but I don't think I'd run it now that I've played it. And I say that because, and this is casting no aspersions or shade whatsoever on Alexander Macris, the creator of the game. But I feel that it's just a bit too fiddly for my liking. And it does things in a way that I think is kind of unnecessarily complex sometimes. And again, one man's unnecessarily complex is another man's perfection of rules. So this is pure opinion. But so far, I'm kind of like, I think I like the game more because of the players and the GM than the system itself, even though there's things in the system that are fantastic. And I have to tell you, buy the GM guide for Axe 2, because the first few chapters alone, in terms of how to run a game, are gold. They're absolute gold. And if you really want to dive into his economic system, it's really cool. Oh, it's really cool, sir. Huh? It's really cool, but it's in the weeds. So that's fine if you dig that stuff. If you're a Traveler player and you love the trading in Traveler and you love going back and forth and doing that stuff, then you'll probably like this too, because it's really specific. The things I like about it are things like, we went to this town and I wanted to buy some plate mail armor. Well, there's a whole chart in the book that determines whether or not such an expensive and complicated item would be available in a market that size. I actually love that. I would love to have something like that for the Broken Empires. And eventually we will do a supplement that is inspired by that, because I think it's really cool. But then there's things like positioning in combat. And for some reason, he says that, 1.5, and don't quote me on this, but 1.5 characters can exist in a square on the grid, and I'm just like, why is that? So I'm, and again, I'm no master, so there could be a reason for this that I don't know. I'm just saying my first impressions of playing the game. But it is super fun, and I will continue to do it because it's a great group. Are there any rules for domain level play in the Broken Empires? No, not yet. We have status, which, as I said, sort of allows you to go down that road if you want, but there's no concrete rules for that kind of stuff. That is something I'd love to do in the future for sure. And again, I'm sure it would be inspired by Axe because he's done some incredible work on that level as well. All right. Carl, hope all is well, Trevor. I'll try to catch this later. Have a great day. Well, thank you, Carl. Thanks for popping in. James Wood says, I love that your show is so different from everything else. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. You've been a long-time fan, James, and I appreciate that. Me, Myself, and Die is so much better than Critical Role. Well, I'll just say it's different. Let's just say it's different. Have you ever had an experience with historical European martial arts? You mean sword fighting? Yes. Yes, I did a lot of it, actually. In fact, I was also a fight choreographer in my younger days, rather, when I was a theatrical director. I was a fight choreographer, and I choreographed many a sword fight, including a very famous one with Nathan Fillion in the show Zastrozzi in 1993. You can find that video on my channel, My Sword Fight with Nathan Fillion, I think it's called. All right. Where are we? Vortak loved the 12-hour video. Good. I'm glad you did. I hope that hope you do. I hope a lot of you did because I put a lot of time into making that one. Jason Murray says I liked the D&D Mythic video. That's actually the one that sold me on Mythic. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Finally, some validation. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's great. That's great. If even one person got something out of it, it was worth it. Terry says, I think it's safe to assume the TBE will be released by Gen Con 26. It better be. Have you given any thought of what you will do? Would love to see some scheduled events play the game. Yeah, that's a good question, man. We're not sure exactly where the game's going to be in the world by then. The backers will have it, and if they don't, then there's been some horrible world event that's interfered with us. But then we've all got bigger problems. My thought is this, and this is all subject to change, so bear with me. My thought is that by the time the backers get the book, it'll be probably like spring, maybe even early summer of 2026. I hate that, but as I said, we're about 6 months behind. So once the backers get it, I can put it out in the world, but it's going to take some time to percolate, right? It's going to take some time for people to see it, to review it, to play it. So I would like to be able to have people play it at Gen Con 26, but I'm not going to be able to have a booth at Gen Con for 2026 because of the timing. So there won't be a booth, but I could run events. I don't want to run events. I could have other people run events, I guess. To tell you the truth, Terry, I'm still working through this, man. This is this first time for me, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the best way to handle that is. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, it would be wise. It would be wise because Gen Con's a place where you discover some games. You know, there's 150,000 people there, and if they see people playing this game going, wow, that looks really cool, or oh my God, whatever. Perilous Wilds is great to randomize, but have you checked Knave 2 random tables yet? Knave 2 is fantastic. Now, was Knave 2 Ben? Was that Ben Milton? Ben's a great guy, and it's funny because I at one point had asked him about his random tables. He does so many great ones. I said to him, how do you, maybe it was Knave that I'm thinking of. It's basically all random tables with like 3 pages of rules. I said, how do you struggle through those random tables? And he said, that's my favorite part. He just loved it. Not me. I actually hired Jason Lutz of the Perilous Wilds to do not all my random tables, but a lot of the big ones in travel. Oh, by the way, that's it. That's what I wanted to do. Adalada had asked me in the very beginning if I could do an example travel event. So I kind of can, I guess, but the problem is that it's all based on the context of the characters for the most part, right? Like travel in this game, it's very procedural, but you don't want to. The GM, doesn't want to make it just a bunch of rolls because if you're just having now the guide rolls, now the quartermaster rolls, now you have an event, you're attacked by 6 orcs, you're literally doing it wrong. What are you doing GMing? Please go away, go play a video game. So it's very procedural, but the idea is that the tools are there to kind of help you flesh out the world itself as you go and to make you feel like you're moving through the world, right? So it's a big procedure, and I'm not going to get into all of the details of it, but suffice to say that with the travel system, there's two different ones, by the way. There's the journey system, and then there's basically a hex crawler system, which I call traveling in daily time. But this is the journey system we're talking about. So in the journey system, there's a guide whose job it is to get you as far as possible before you have to stop and make an event roll. There's the quartermaster, whose job it is to ensure that the camp you make along the way is good or are good, and that the rations are properly meted out and things like this. And then there's the scout, and the scout's job is to ensure that you don't run across anything bad, or that if you do run across something, you're able to get the jump on it before it gets the jump on you, even if that is just like an interesting event. Or because not everything in the game, when you're on a journey, the events aren't random battles, right? It's not like a D&D game where the only thing you're checking for is to see if 2d6 orcs attack, right? That could happen. Finding enemies in the wilderness is certainly a thing, but there's all kinds of stuff that can happen. So essentially, everyone goes through their process, and the GM is describing what's happening as you go. And when you get to the event, essentially the scout makes a perception roll, and that perception roll's SL, success levels, will give a pool of favor that the party can use in that coming encounter, whatever it is. It basically represents like preparation, right, that the scout had because they saw it first. So what happens is when the GM is crafting the event, there's all kinds of ways you can do it. From the kind of super high level way of doing it, basically what the GM does is first think, okay, there's an event that's rolled. So the first thing, is it a day or night, right? That's going to be based on the result. If the scout's perception roll is odd, then the event occurs at night. If it's even, it occurs during the day. It's just an easy way to determine whether it's at night or the day. And obviously, if you're on a journey and the event happens at night, then it's probably going to happen at camp, right? But not necessarily. It depends on the context. So you want to look at the danger level of the hex. There's 4 different danger levels of the hex, and if you don't know, there's a table you can randomly determine. And it's either going to be dangerous, perilous, neutral, or safe. And obviously those are from most dangerous down to least dangerous. So the GM considers that, okay, they're in a perilous hex. Okay, all right, or yellow hex, as you might mark it on your map. What is the terrain in that hex? Oh, it's a forest. Okay, all right, so I'm putting that together in my mind. It's a perilous forest. They're in the woods. Okay, all right, and it takes place in the day. Okay, so it's a day, perilous area in the woods, and now is the weather important? It might be, it might not, but maybe you want to see what the weather's doing because that might inspire you, right? If it's a torrential downpour, and I have a daily weather table, so you can do that, and I also have weather tables based on where you are in the Broken Empires, you can use those if you want. Okay, it's a torrential downpour in Angvar in this forest, and it's a perilous hex because they're way away from civilization. Okay, already things are percolating. It's shifting my perspective. It's making me think, okay, it's narrowing my focus, right? Okay, and now, are there any character goals maybe that might be important here? Maybe, maybe not. That's entirely based on the context. So the highest level of all is just those general things. And maybe you come up with an event just based on that. But if you don't, then the next sort of level down is the initial prompt table. And this is very much like a mythic table. You roll twice, and if those combinations of action and subject give you an idea, then you go with it. Boom. So let's say, I've got a little random roller here. Let's say you're doing that. So it's a perilous hex. The players have been on the road for a week, and they've encountered their first event. And it's a torrential downpour in a forest hex, in a perilous hex, and you roll on the table 28 and 44, which means destroy justice. Destroy justice. To me, right away, I think, destroy justice. This is a tax collector who's gone rogue, and they come across him basically putting the screws to a small village or a little hamlet. So that's interesting right off the bat. And okay, I guess that's the scene. How do they handle it? That's entirely up to them. But let's say you roll destroy justice, and you go, you know what? Nothing's coming to me. That's okay, because now we can go to the next level, which is far more specific. So we're in a precarious hex. So I've got a big table here called Encounter Type by Hex Danger. And this is the next level, okay? We were at the big high level. Now we're kind of narrowing our focus. If Destroy Justice didn't do anything for you, that's okay. Move on. Try something else. We go to this table. And we roll, let's see, 47 on Precarious. And it is a minor threat. So I go to the minor threat subtable. And I have to scroll through it because this isn't a PDF. This is a Pages document I'm looking at. Minor threat is a run-in with NPCs, aggressive wildlife, or territorial locals, which may escalate. So this might be your 2d6 orcs, right? It's possible. But let's see what happens. There's 3 columns in this one: type, behavior, and possible consequence. These are all just springboards for your imagination. So type, 77, territorial local, villager, hermit, whatever. The next one is 58 for behavior. So this villager flees when confronted. Okay, well, that's an interesting one. And then finally, the possible consequence is a temporary delay. So it's a territorial local, a villager who doesn't like people on his lands. He flees when confronted, though, so he's ultimately a coward. He's just bumping up himself. He's trying to claim that you're on my land kind of thing. But the consequence of the possible consequence of this threat is a temporary delay. So he could do something to delay the party. So maybe he's across a small stream and there's a bridge, and he basically says to the party, you're not allowed to come across this bridge. This is my land. And if they go to threaten him, he immediately flees. But if they cross that bridge, the bridge is basically rigged to collapse underneath them. And now they have to deal with that, swept away down the river or something. That's an example. I'm just pulling this out of the air. Well, I'm not pulling it out of the air. I'm pulling it out of the charts. These were designed for GMs who like to roll on the fly, like I do, right? Anybody who's seen me, myself, and Die knows this is how I roll. Now, if you're not that kind of GM, that's okay too, because it just means you're going to have to do a little prep. You can take this, and before a game, if you know that your players are going to go on a journey, you can say, or even if you're not sure they're going to go on a journey, if you just want to have a few things ready in the pocket just in case, you go through. And before the game, you go through, you roll on the tables, you come up with a few things, you take your time to think about it. Oh, yeah, territorial local who flees, and there's a temporary delay. What does that mean? You could take the time. Well, what if it's this? And you just write down your notes and you prepare the encounter. And then you do that 2 or 3 times so that the next time they go on a journey, maybe that's what happens. Now, you have no control of where the player's going to go. You don't know what hex they're going to stop in. You don't know what the terrain is. But that kind of stuff you can adjust on the fly, right? Like if that thing that you developed was in your mind if it took place in a thick forest, but the players wind up in a mountainous terrain. Well, it's not that hard to adjust that encounter for a mountainous terrain, for example, right? So yeah, the system like that is designed for GMs who like to create on the fly, who like a lot of fodder for their imagination. That's what this does. But you don't have to do it on the fly. It just means you have to prepare a little ahead of time. But a lot of you GMs are used to that anyway, right? Preparing ahead of time. In the starting adventure, a Smoldering Ember, which comes in the starter set box, which is super epic. And this is not your go into the dungeon and kill some orcs and get some treasure kind of adventure. No, this is save a kingdom and stop a war. But in that adventure, there are 20 events that I have already made, pre-made, that are randomized, or the GM can just pick. So there's 20 different events for the GM to use if they don't want to go through this process and come up with stuff. So yeah, so that's an example of an event. Let me give you another one just because. Let's say they're in, I'll go back to the hex danger levels. Let's say, where are we? Come on, where are you? The event tables. There we go. Let's say they're in a neutral hex, okay? And they roll 29, and we get, no, it's minor threat again. Lost. Interestingly enough, in the journey rules, there are no specific things about getting lost. Lost is, the condition of becoming lost is wrapped up into the entire process. It's assumed that if the players, if the guide, if the quartermaster, if they fail some rolls, one of the ways to justify it is because they got lost. But the thing about getting lost in the wilderness, 99% of the time, it's just a delay that causes the players to eventually figure their way back to the path and get to where they're going. So what that means is if you've screwed up on those rolls, you're probably going to take more fatigue. And that is represented as you got lost, perhaps, and you had to take an extra bit of time, or whatever the case is. It cost you more energy to get back to where you wanted, and now you suffer more fatigue. So it's kind of built into it. But in this case, there's an actual lost result on the table. So I go to our lost subtable here, and there's 3 columns: cause, possible consequence, and remedy. So the cause of this particular one, 27, forced detour, landslide, fallen trees, etc. Let's say we're back in the forest. Okay, so forced detour, fallen trees. Maybe there's a giant, all of these giant pine and spruce trees are collapsed in front of them, causing like a natural barrier, let's say. Second one, possible consequence, 68, new area discovered. So the possible consequence of this getting lost is they discover a new area, but what is the remedy? 29, discover signs of travelers, campfire or smoke. Okay, so I look at that and I think, okay, they do get lost. The reason why they get lost is because they're trying to go through one particular low part of the forest where they're kind of going through a natural dry river gully or a river valley, basically, that's high forest, almost cliffs on either side. And they can't go any further because there's a massive deadfall, almost like a wall of trees. And they know that to get past this thing is just going to be terrible. So it's much easier to go around. And if they do go around, because maybe they don't, maybe they try to get past it, maybe they, climb the wall or whatever, but it is a lost encounter. Again, this is just fodder for the GM to present to the players, right? The players are the ones who decide how to handle the challenge. Not the GM. The GM doesn't necessarily say, this is how you must handle this. No, he presents the challenge, and then the players decide how to deal with it. So, big wall of trees there, fallen trees, whatever the case. Maybe it's suspicious. Maybe giants put it there. Who knows? But they have to detour, so they do, and they discover a new area with signs of travelers. So, as they discover a new area, maybe they find a camp. And that camp is populated by NPCs. Who are those NPCs? Well, I have a bazillion tables you can roll on to find those out as well. So those are just 2 examples out of the blue, but there's all kinds of things. Let me give you some lists. So, for example, there's catastrophic events, major threats, ambush, trap, environmental hazard, minor threat, lost, accident, wary NPC, strange phenomenon, curious wildlife, mysterious clue, scenic moment, social interaction, trade opportunity, resource opportunity, environmental boon, helpful NPC, discovery, or site. I have a whole bunch of subtables for sites. If you discover an adventuring site, what is it? Who made it? Who's there? What was it used for? What is it used for now? All that kind of stuff. Anyway, extremely long-winded way of answering that question, but I hope that gives you some glimpse into how that travel event stuff works, okay? Okay. Arg Scott says, just able to join the live stream now, but looking forward to the VOD. But wanted to let you know how excited I am for Broken Empires and appreciate all the work you put into it. Well, thank you, my friend. Thank you. Night Watch Games in San Antonio, Monk. That is correct. San Antonio, Texas. Okay, every time I click on this, I lose my place. Here we go. Panayotis Skotsis. How many groups do you play with? How many times per month on average? Not enough. My heyday, my glory days, my golden age was in my 30s. When I was still living in Vancouver, I was living the free life of a rover. I was always gainfully employed in voiceover. I was a bachelor. I had nothing but money and time and groups to play with. I was running, I think, at the same time, in those days, I was running Harn Master. I was running New World of Darkness. I was running... what was the other one? Was it GURPS? Was it... I can't remember. There was another one. But I was also playing in a Vampire the Requiem game. I was playing in an Unknown Armies game. I was playing in a Call of Cthulhu game. So I was playing like 6 times a week, and it was glorious. Amazing. It was so good. These days, not so much. Mostly because the Broken Empires takes up all my time. But it was so nice to get back to the table last night and just play, just run the game. Oh, it was so good. It was so cool, you guys. I can't tell you. It was so great. The scenario last night, these players, they basically came across this fisherman's hut that had been burned down by barbarians who shouldn't have been there. Barbarians were way too far south. They realized that the barbarians had taken the wife and daughter. And so they ambushed the barbarians. So cool. The combat system was so great. They managed to take out all the barbarians with a really awesome combination of like ambushing with arrows and calling down the power of Devona and using control water spells, and it was just fantastic. They took them out. They rescued the girl. It was this really horrible thing because this girl had lost her parents. It was all very graphic and stuff. But they got her back to the town. They met all these interesting NPCs, and they immediately got invested in what was going on. It was so great. Oh my God, they loved it, and so did I. Okay, all right. Nigel Hobbs says, I can see a second edition coming. Bite your tongue, sir. There will be no need for a second edition, for I will make this edition. Perfect. There, I tried to get to it without laughing. Grognard, Texas, what's your favorite coffee? Anything currently in my mug? This is HEB, Taste of San Antonio, actually. That's right, I think that's what it is here. Taste of San Antonio. I don't know if anyone down here actually calls it San Antonio. I think that's just something you hear from flight attendants on plane rides from Seattle coming to Texas. All right. Kurai Shinobi, I don't know about your Mythic GME video, but now I'm going to watch it because that's what I've been looking for. Please do. Please do. I love that. There was two parts, actually. They were pretty cool. Jason Murray, I like OSR sensibilities. Dangerous, grittier, lighter. But I really don't like class and level. Me neither. Dragonbane is pretty much my forever OSR-ish game. I hear you, dude. I'm right there with you. I love Dragonbane. I tried to run a campaign earlier this year, but had no time because of the Rogan Empires. But I love Dragonbane. I think it's great. I think Free League is the greatest company in the world. I'm just going to say that. I think they're fantastic. Corey, are you going to be at BGGCon in Dallas in November? No. I have to do a lot of traveling over the next few months, and I don't think I'll have time for that one. Nave is Ben. Okay, great. Royal Magus says, I love the feeling of TBE. I'm already starting to print out terrain for in-person play with friends. I love the sound of that. Definitely using Warhammer Old World as inspiration for buildings. Hey, have you guys seen Warhammer the Old World as a system? I encountered it at Gen Con this year, and I was very skeptical about yet another Warhammer fantasy RPG, but I have to say, I'm kind of a sucker for dice pools. Let's face it, I'm a sucker for anything new. I love the new shiny. I've been back to the Empire as a GM so many times, my friends, and every time I go back, I say, okay, that's it. I'm not going back because I can't possibly top myself. This was the greatest campaign ever. And then years later, I go back and I manage to top myself. So maybe I will be going back one day with Warhammer or Old World, but I kind of like it, I think. I think I want it. But after I finish the Rogan Empire. After. All right. Vaughn, W, your RPG likes and dislikes so completely overlap mine. I feel we probably went to very similar game stores back in the 80s in Canada. Wifrabwum and Merp for me. Yeah. Where are you from, Vaughn? Because I grew up in Edmonton. And I spent some time in Victoria, BC as well. That's where I bought Palladium, or Palladium as it's technically known, but it'll always be Palladium to me. Olong Kamojo. In the Broken Empires, what's the general tech level? I guess it's late medieval or early Renaissance, not counting the dwarves and their flying ships, of course. Generally, yeah, that's true, but it depends where you are. Like, Angevin is pretty full medieval France. The Westlands is, still mid-period England-ish. Not everything has a direct correlation. Thessia is kind of like 8th century Anglo-Saxon. Dunblane is more like early medieval Ireland or Scotland. But then you get Tikal Dandala, which is kind of like Renaissance era Spanish Armada era Spain, right? So, and then you get Ansharir and the Red Wastes, which is kind of like a throwback to ancient Egypt. So it's all over the place, but in a way that kind of works, I think. A lot of people leveled the criticism at the original Forgotten Realms for being the kitchen sink, right? Oh, well, that's got everything. It's got Egypt and it's got high medieval. And I kind of like that, though. Mostly because it was so far apart, you could justify it. But there's something that tickles my fancy about that. I like to think that all these cultures work in the same world because, hey, magic, magic changes everything. Yeah, and the dwarves and their flying ships. That changes some things. How lethal is the system in the scale of OD&D versus 5e? How lethal is the Broken Empires? I don't know. There's many ways to end a fight without killing. So I don't know. Have we had players die? Yes, but I will say that the system is tilted in favor of the player characters a little bit, just a little bit. I don't like players feeling like they're the special, super awesome superhero protagonist of the world. I don't like that. But I do like the fact that they have a little tiny edge up, right? Lethal is dangerous. Fighting is dangerous, for sure. For example, they ambushed these barbarians last night, and the archer shot this barbarian crossbowman by the edge of this lake. One shot, hit him in the ear, and knocked him out, just like that. And basically, he died. So that can happen to players. So, right, again, players have resolve. They have things they can do to offset that. But fighting is not something you just waltz into like it's D&D. It's not at all the same thing. You wear your wounds for days in this game, and they become infected if you're not careful. Greek Solo says the whole travel system, especially travel stains. That's funny. So they're no longer called travel stains. I got too much flack from people. They're just called fatigue now. You take fatigue, which is fine. But yeah, it's cool. And it's come a long way since the stuff you've seen in Season 4, too. Agile Monk, I love you and your work, but I'm so impatient to get TBE as it's so aligned to me to what I truly enjoy. Well, I'm working as fast as I can, brother. Doing the best I can. Michael Rose says, now those are handy charts. They sure are. The man with green socks, that rolling mechanic is so awesome. I love it. Cool. Where are we? Out of thin air, guided by charts. Love that. Yeah, and again, you don't have to. You can do previous prep if you want. Giuliano, I'm probably not saying your name right. I know you're super busy, but have you had a chance to check Dungeon World 2? No, I saw that they were advertising it at Gen Con, but I haven't seen it. I'm interested in it. Like I said, everybody hates on Dungeon World, the first one, and I don't really know why. I thought it was fine. But again, I'm no master of that system, so I can't really see. A game so great, even Jordan Peterson would play it. Oh, I see what's going on here. I know you, Grognard. I know who you are. I know who you are. You're damn right I do, eh? And I would say, what would you say? Trying to finagle me into a position that I have to, what would you say? Respond in a certain way, bucko. Jordan Peterson is from my home province. Just for the record, so, yeah. Those tables sound sick as hell, Jason Murray. Yeah, they're fucking awesome. Panayotis Gotis? Almost perfect pronunciation of my Greek name. I think you lie, sir. I think you lie. Okay. Jason HST. 10 cameras and no footage. We've seen your GM chops. Would be fun to see Trevor the player at some point. Yeah, man. I know it's coming. It's coming. Bear with me. All right. Julio S. I don't know if you've already talked about it before, but I'd be interested in some preview of the solo game for TBE. Yeah, so when I do finish Season 4, you're going to see the current rules, and hopefully the final rules. So at the last episode or episodes, depending how many go, of Season 4, will be the up-to-date game. So you will see that in action. All right. Losing my place again. I played 11 kids. Some of them first. Oh, you ran 11 kids. Some of them first timers on a Dragon Bait adventure. It went perfectly. It was fast. Yeah, it's good. It's a good one. Ark Scott used to go to Leisure World out here in Ontario. Whereabouts in Ontario? Are you talking Ontario, the Canadian province? Are you my Canadian compadre there, Ark Scott? If I scroll up to find out, I'll lose my place again. David Spike, channel member. Thank you, sir. Always love me some flying ships. Anything that reminds me of Terry Amthor's Shadow World. Oh, Shadow World. So close to my heart. I had thought Shadow World was denied to me forever, and then a couple years ago in Vancouver in the sadly now defunct game store Drexel Games out on 4th Avenue. It used to be the best place, basically on the West Coast, for finding used books, RPGs. And I came across a brand new version of the entirety of Shadow World. I bought it immediately. It was $20 or something, maybe even less. So it sits on my shelf now, just in an honored place beside my original Rollmaster Blue box set with everything in it. Shadow World, so great. Shadow World was like Iron Crown Enterprises saying, well, we don't have the license to Middle-earth, so we're just going to make our own version, just a little weirder. All right. And then everyone's laughing at Jordan Peterson or whatever you're doing. Because, what would you say? Dude, there's something different about a voice actor making an impression. It's amazing. Please, Trevor, do some more. Do some more. Dance, monkey, dance. It's been so long since your last video that I saw this stream and said, hey, it's Travis Duval. Die. Oh, you're going back into weekly schedule after launching TBE. Well, I never was actually on a weekly schedule. That was always the dream, but it never really happened. When I launch TBE, that is like saying when the rapture comes. I can't even see it in my head now because I've been so in the game. Actually, that's not true. The light is at the end of the tunnel. We now have sort of a tentative release date in our minds here that is realistic. So, yeah, I'm gonna get back to doing stuff. I really want to get into Rangers of Shadow Deep because when I did 5 parsecs from home, that was great. It was super fun and it was very different. So I want to do that. Where are we here? Oh, Mr. Travis White, don't want to give anything away, but the TBE session was great. Travis was one of my players last night. Things were smooth, fluid, and the character space for creativity felt great. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad. I sure loved it too. All right. Paul Bashleda. I didn't like that Dungeon World mixed D&D into Powered by the Apocalypse. Excuse me. The current playtest for DW2 is playing with being more D&D. Seems like that's the crossroads they're at with development. So, can you explain this to me, Paul? Because I've heard this before. What is it specifically about mixing D&D concepts into Powered by the Apocalypse that doesn't work for you? Again, I'm no master of this at all, and I'm not even a master of the Powered by the Apocalypse rule set, so you're going to know probably a lot better than I do, but I'm really curious what you guys think. What is it about Dungeon World that sort of rubbed the Apocalypse players the wrong way? I have heard it's things like having hit points instead of like escalating hit points a la D&D rather than whatever the other version is. I think it's just a wound clock, basically, right? Tell me your thoughts in the notes below. Are you going to create a one full video for season 2? Oh yeah, I talked about this before. Probably not. It was a lot of work. You can watch season 2. It's on a big playlist on the channel, so one will just roll into the other. Kurai, do you have any analogs for Middle Eastern or Arab cultures? Yes, I do. Many, actually. There's Ansharir, which is kind of like Egypt, ancient Egypt. There's the Red Wastes, which is also kind of like Egypt, but also kind of Arabia, North Africa-ish a bit. Then there's Saragoya and Drangia. Saragoya is very much like Mongolia. Drangia is flavors of Turkey, Mongolia. There's stuff like that in there, like kind of pre-Ottoman. So yeah, there's all kinds of great desert-based stuff in there as well. Season 4 of my show takes place in Ansharir and the Red Wastes right now, so I get to play in the sands of the Red Wastes, which is so cool. All right. Nigel Hobbs. Oh, the light at the end of the tunnel. But is it a train coming the other way? I hope not. Tortuga, I really want more Rangers of Shadow Deep. Me too. That one werewolf adventure I did on the channel was super fun. Super fun. Juliana, have you ever fired a flintlock musket? In life? Have I ever fired a flintlock? No, I've never fired one. I don't know where I'd find one to fire. That'd be cool. I have no idea. No idea. It's not the usual kind of gun you fire at the range. Anywho. Well, guys, it's been an hour and a half. And I've got to the end of the channel. Oh, and there's another one. How many minis do you have? Too many to count. Too many to store. They're all in my shelf. I don't know. Not as many as some. Like 400, 500, something like that. Too many. You live in Texas, mate. In the backyard you can fire. Well, I have to find... Well, that's not true. My HOA would be very upset. And I'd have to find one. And that's pretty hard. Mike Matthews, as you just mentioned Rangers of Shadow Deep, have you seen the recent TTRPG rules supplement for the game? I have not. Tell me about that. Tell me, because when I look at those rules, I think, yeah, this is basically an RPG. I could run this as an RPG pretty much out of the box the way it is. You know, you'd have to add a few things in there, but I really like the little system, the D20 versus D20 system. I think it's great. I think it's cool. Terry, is TBE the most difficult thing you've ever done? One of, yeah. I've embarked on many radically crazy creative endeavors in my life. All of them have been successes, thank God. Hopefully this one will too. I made a film in 2000, which won awards and got bought by networks and stuff up in Canada, which was fantastic. That was a lot, but hugely rewarding experience. That was hard. That was tough. That was a lot of work. A lot of work. I wrote a play that won awards and toured the country toured the western part of the country at least for 4 years. Which I was in. I also wrote. It wasn't a musical, but it was a play about a band, about this Newfoundlander band that has to tour across Canada to play a wake in Vancouver. Big success, huge success. That was a lot of work, very hard. So I've made the film, I've written the play, and now I guess I've written the book, because that was the next thing. Got to write the book. Didn't know what the book was going to be. I guess it's a game book. I will say, yeah, it is easily one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, because technical writing, it's not enough just to have the good idea. You have to be able to communicate it in a way that other people can understand, and communicate it in such a way that it doesn't get misinterpreted, which is almost impossible much of the time. So yeah, it is easily one of the hardest things I've ever done. But I think also probably one of the most creatively rewarding things too. And now I get to share it with 5,000 of you who all bought it, which is pretty great. So if you guys get even half the enjoyment out of it that I have, that's going to be cool. That's going to be great. All right. Standees are better than minis. Well, yeah, well, that's one opinion. Actually, to tell you the truth, in my game, I use little bingo chips with a little sticker on it, and you write the name of the character, and you put an arrow to show which way they're facing. And then I have a hex map, a blank hex map, and I have water salt pens, and I sketch out the area with the zones, and that's that. And I've been doing that since I was 10 years old, and it's always worked for me. Minis, to me, they're cool and all, but for me, minis actually take away from the visual experience in a way, because part of the power of a role-playing game, especially around the table, is that you see your own version of it in your own mind, right? So minis focus your imagination into only seeing that. It's like when you play a VTT and the GM says, here's the NPC, and shows you a picture. Okay, that's fine. Picture is worth 1,000 words, but sometimes those 1,000 words, if they're your own words, they form a picture that is all yours, that you can claim in your own mind about what that person looks like. And so I feel it's kind of a disservice in a way to the players, in a way. I mean, on one sense, minis immediately tell you what the character looks like. That's very useful. But again, I feel the power of an RPG is everyone takes away a deeply personalized experience from it. So if you focus the player's mind, I talk about this in the GM guide in the book. I talk about how you want to paint the picture for your players, but you want to do it a la C.S. Lewis, who famously said, and I'll paraphrase, I think this was in one of the Narnia books. He's talking about the big feast that they're having, and he could have pulled a George R.R. Martin and tantalized us with all these details about the types of bread and the venison and the fat dripping off of the bone and all that kind of stuff, but he doesn't. Instead, what he says is there was meats and cheese and pastries and all the things you would expect at such a sumptuous meal. And that allows the reader to picture their own personal version of what that looked like. Now, if there are details that matter to the adventure, obviously you have to communicate those. If it's really important that the players are eating venison, then the GM has to make sure that the players understand their characters are eating venison. Most of the time it's not. So if it's not, allow them to inhabit their own creative space. Allow them to see their own version of it. I used to be obsessed about this. I used to really, really need to have my players see exactly what I saw. And I found that was a fool's errand, because A, you can't. There's no way to do that unless I could somehow directly beam my imagination image into their brains, which we're a long way from that. And B, when you try and do that, you're denying them their own creative agency in a way, Anyway, blah, 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 blah. Where does the time go? Paul, here we go. So we're talking about, what was that? I asked you something. Oh, Dungeon World, here we go. Yeah, right. So why you don't like the D&D aspects of it. Hit points, same classes, races, etc. There are dozens of options for D&D, clones, and generic Tolkien races fantasy that have felt cheap. I'll give it points for the Paladin, Oaths, and other specifics. Okay, understandable. There are, in fact, dozens of options for D&D. That is for sure. Everybody and their dog does a D&D version and calls it an OSR game. Carl says, I can't believe it's been 6 years since the Savage Worlds of Simon of Argistan. Yeah. Will you ever go back to doing content like that again? Those early days were so good. Well, I still do have to finish Season 4, as I've said. I still have to finish Season 4. Okay. Oh, thank you, Paul. Thanks for the stream. Thank you, sir. Thanks for the super chat. Nigel, try being a wargamer for number of figures. Oh, you're talking about minis. Yeah, I would imagine wargamers would have far more than that. I never was really a wargamer, at least not with minis. I was kind of wanted to be, but I just never really had an opportunity to get into it. Boondale, found you while looking for West March's style of gameplay. Never played in one. Sounds interesting. Yeah, they can be really cool. They can also be frustrating for the wrong group. There are many groups out there that are used to the GM telling them which way to go and what to do and giving them, quote-unquote, the story. That is antithetical to the West March's style. In the West March's style, it's entirely up to the players to drive, right? So the Broken Empires kind of hits a sweet spot between those two things. The GM knows the world, the players know their characters, the GM knows the player character's goals and tries to tie in those goals into what's happening in the world. That doesn't mean that the world revolves around the characters. No, they're not that special. But at any opportunity, if the GM can use those threads of the character's goals to tie into existing conflicts or to create new conflicts, that's going to personalize the conflict for the player. And that's far more engaging in most cases, right? So that is the that's the theory behind that. I bought it after Kickstarter. I bought it on your website. Oh, cool. I can't miss this book. I'm glad I found your channel, mate. Huge fan here. Awesome. Well, thanks for all the questions too, all the comments too. The Royal Magus. I love using minis in terrain, especially with 3D printing these days. It's so much cheaper. Yeah, I love it too. It's great. It's a pain in the ass to drag around, especially like me. Like I don't have set piece battles because I don't plan that kind of stuff before, right? I improvise, not entirely improvise, but I don't know what the player's going to do, and I have to respond to what they do. So if I've set up this big ambush in a pumpkin patch, let's say, and the players decide, no, we're not going to go there, and I've brought all of this terrain that's specific to the pumpkin patch, well, now it's kind of wasted, right? Because if they decide to go to some, I don't know, mountain, I can't just say, well, there's the pumpkin patch in the mountain, guys. I mean, I could, but oi. Sloan says, I just got here. Can someone recap real quick what's been said so far? Nothing much. Just a bunch of bullshit. So for Rangers of the Shadow Deep, it's called Rangers of Shadow Deep Role-Playing Run Down the Rackland. I will check that out. I will definitely check that out. Big fan of that game. Love it. All right. Love the hat, says Wizardborn. Me too, weirdly. How do you transition a gaming group to Sandbox? Any thoughts or suggestions on this arduous task? Yeah, that's a really great question. I have so many different groups. I'm trying to think back to the day. Okay, well, I'll tell you. Back when I was still living in Edmonton, when I first came across the Sandbox style, it was playing Palladium in something called the World of Aefgard. And it wasn't a pure Sandbox style, but it was pretty close. And what I discovered in that method of play, which I'd never experienced before, was that the players have no plot armor. Imagine that! But that was kind of new. And this is back in, like, I want to say the early 90s, maybe? So, you know, I'd been playing for many years by that point. But the idea that the story had nothing to do with the GM pre-plotting a bunch of events and guiding the players through it, but rather it was the players responding to hooks in the world and then deciding what to do. That was revolutionary. So when I discovered it, I fell in love with it, and I transitioned my group to it by throwing them in it. We started a new game, Palladium, role-playing game. It was set in this kind of Viking world. It was very inspired by the Aefgard game I was playing. So I was going to run with this. And we all made characters, and we started. And they heard about this hook for a dungeon. And they all thought, oh, clearly this is what we're supposed to do. Now, I had given them other hooks, but they got that in their head at the dungeon. They never did any research on it. They did nothing like that. They assumed foolishly it was a quote-unquote first-level dungeon. It was not. They got in there. Everybody was dead before they got 120 feet in the complex. And that was the first time they'd ever lost characters in such a way. And their jaws hit the ground. They couldn't believe what had happened. And I said, yep, this is on you now. And it was like a switch flipped in their heads where they suddenly realized, oh, our fates are in our hands now. We actually have to think about how we approach things. And from that day on, their gaming changed forever. Now they became hyper aware of what was happening in the game. They became aware of things like battlefield tactics, which really wasn't that big a deal before, because they kind of knew they had a little bit of plot armor, and, it didn't really matter if you wanted to hold the enemy off by holding the doorway so that they couldn't outflank you, stuff like that. And it changed everything. And the idea that they went to a place that they weren't supposed to go to, that blew their minds. And so from that day on, they were like, you know what? Maybe we should research a place before we go. What they learned was the game does not conform to the characters. That it's not a Skyrim game. The world doesn't level up with you. It's not a Pathfinder 2 game. You don't get thrown challenges that are more or less balanced based on your level. None of that. It was, if you go where you're not tough enough to go and you choose to go in and not leave, then what comes next is on you. And it changed the game forever. So the question is, how do you transition a gaming group to Sandbox? I can't possibly tell you how you transition your group to Sandbox, but that's how I transitioned mine. And it was net good all around. All around, net good. Our games became so much more engaging. Our games became so much more tense. Our games became exhausting in all the best possible ways. Right? So, that's that. Terry, gotta go. Great stream, Trevor. Thanks, Terry. You're probably gone by now, but thank you anyway. Mike Matthews is going to post the drive-through link. Great. Okay. And if that doesn't work for whatever reason, just do it on the... If you can't do it in the chat, do it on the actual video. And if you can't do that, just send me a DM? Is that a thing? An email? I don't know. Fans at memyselfanddie.com, and I'll get that. Sunset Boulevard, do you feel that solo RPGs have experienced innovation in recent years? Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. I feel there's some exciting stuff happening in the design space. Excited for the future. Yeah, there's tons of stuff going on. The very fact that solo RPGs have had this giant renaissance is amazing. But, people say to me, so how often do you use solo RPG on your... And the answer is I don't. I don't. I do it for the show. So I'm no master on that kind of stuff. And I don't really keep up with the latest developments because... Well, again, Broken Empires. Working on that one. George Fields is here. Hey, George. I met George. George was at the Hackmaster booth at Gen Con, and I bought Hackmaster 5e off of him and quickly realized that Hackmaster was a deeply simulationist game, which I did not know. And it was deeply inspiring to me because I realized that Hackmaster was doing the same kind of things that the Broken Empires was doing, except that my game did it in, well, a different way, we'll say. I think it's a more streamlined way, but that's biased, obviously. Anyway, hello, George. Good to see you. And he's looking forward to getting BE on my shelf. Yes, and I'm looking forward to getting it to you. Have patience, my friend. Have patience. It's all in the works. We're doing an update. I have to actually write that today, probably, because we got to get it out to you before September's over. We got a little cool stuff in this update. It's pretty cool. But the art, guys, the new artists, oh my God, it's just they're things of beauty. I'm so happy. Anyway, okay. Vaughn says, I totally agree with you about minis at the table. It takes away the power of the imagination. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I enjoy minis. I like them. I like to see them, and I like to see them in terrain. I like to I love it. It's the little kid in me goes, yay, toys. But purely from a utilitarian perspective, I prefer my little chips and my battle mats and stuff that I can draw out for all the reasons I said. Anyway, it's been an hour and 42 minutes. My goodness. Thank you for joining me on this impromptu stream, guys. I am going to do, I say this every single time, I'm going to do more of this. And I really do. I want to start doing these more often because it's easy for me to take an hour or an hour or two and just update you and talk to you and answer questions and talk about all the cool stuff. Ricardo and Julia, you guys have some questions. You know what? Come back to the next stream and ask me those questions again, and I will answer it. But for the moment, I really do have to go. So thanks, guys. Remember, if you haven't got your pre-orders check it out, thebrokenempiresrpg.com. They're still open. They will be open right up until the time that we have to stop them and send out the orders. So that is cool. And if you do want to support me on Patreon as well, go check it out. Me, Myself, and Die on Patreon, or you can do that right here on the YouTube channel as well. Really appreciate it, and it helps me continue forging ahead with stuff like this. Thanks, guys. I will now end the broadcast. Bye!